Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to Hacking the Dungeon with Tome Keeper Devin. I, of course, am Tome Keeper Devin, and I'll be your host this evening as we re-engage into a discussion of player types. Now, I didn't stream last week because I was very busy. We were filming some stuff with some very nice guests. If you happen to catch the Deadliest Dungeon stream we did on Sunday, where we had Ed Greenwood and Elisa Teague guest star as DMs, you might be able to kind of get a guess as to some of the stuff we might have been up to. But that's neither here nor there. Hello, everybody. Hello, that was loud. Hello, Beskar. Echo. Yes, I got to be Elisa's devil on the shoulder, and Ed's to some degree as well, although he doesn't really need a lot of help with that regard. But yes, we're back. We're in business. Unfortunately, probably not going to do this next week because I'll be off to DreamHack Atlanta. And I'll be on a plane by this time next week. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But for now, I am here, and we can continue discussing things. So, player, okay, I guess. So, for anyone who didn't catch last week, first of all, go check it out. Pretty cool. We talk about player motivations. We had some new people show up. They asked for some advice. It was all awesome. And I also have restarted my Dungeon Hack playthrough. I kind of got to a point in the original one where I kind of stuck, and it would have been very difficult to progress as I was. So I instead created a new character with many more options available, and that has made the game significantly better to play through and much less taxing on my mind. And it's also opened the doors to actually learning more about how the game works. So, it worked out. It's now Canon Keymaster's Plot Armor. I don't know what to tell you, Beskar. We try, man, and it just, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. So we are going to be recontinuing our discussion about different player types. These are the sort of either motivations or because players of D&D and other TTRPGs, they have their own way of how they enjoy playing the game, and there is no real wrong way to enjoy except for the ones that are wrong. But many people are a combination of very different kind of types of gameplay. But there are certain archetypes that it does seem like many people fall into. And so that's kind of what we've been talking about. We've been discussing those different types of players and what you can do to motivate them, to mitigate them, to and kind of like what they're like. And so you kind of can figure out what sort of player type you are, or maybe your friends are. And this can be a way for you to help guide them a little bit easier. The dragon 1v1 can't end him, nothing can. I mean, there's something out there somewhere, but we'll just have to wait and find out what it is, I guess. So last stream, we covered, so we're going through the player motivations from the 4th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, because it's actually a really good Dungeon Master's Guide. If you haven't had the chance to read the 4th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, you should check it out. There's some really good stuff in there. I know 4th edition gets kind of a bad rap, but the DMG actually is really solid. It has a lot of good advice, and it helps clarify things that some of the other DMGs don't do. I mean, in general, you should always read the DMG. The DMG is full of all kinds of great stuff. More people need to read the DMG. But the 4th edition one, right around the beginning, it's like page 8, it talks about the different types of players, and gives you a breakdown of each of them. And that's what we've been using to classify these characters. So these are not my specific classifications. They're just the ones I use because I grew up using the 4th edition player classifications. So that's what I'm familiar with the most. Goodman Games also has some stuff on that in their book, how to write I think it's How to Write Adventures That Don't Suck. I have it somewhere. I'll have to see if I can find it. Maybe I'll do a Tome Keeper's Library on it. I think that might be a good idea. But it's a pretty good book, and it has its own classifications of types of players and gives you advice on how to do that. So this is in no means an exhaustive, definitive list. This is just what I find to be useful for myself, and also what Wizards found useful. Hello, Bugcatcher Mike. Oh, you enjoyed some stuff about 4E. You can't lie. There were fun times in there. So, first of all, before we go too much further, let's hack some dungeon. So, I don't quite remember where I was. DK22. I don't remember. I think I saved because there was something. Man, so much has happened in the last 2 weeks that so much is just a blur to me at this point. Right before a dungeon entrance, and I'm assuming that means we've explored everywhere. Sure looks like it. All right. How are we doing for spell? Like, do I need to rest? We got 2 Cure Lights and a Turn Undead, but we don't have the hammer one, which is the important one. So I am going to rest, and let's cast some healing spells while we're at it. All right. Spiritual Hammer. Give me my Spiritual Hammer. But first, let's go down. And I'm going to have to answer a question, aren't I? Oh, no, I must have already done it. Okay. Cool. Then... Spiritual Hammer. Where's my Spiritual Hammer? Do I have to have an empty weapon slot for that? Ooh, that might suck. I just wasted it. Alright, lesson learned. Make sure my weapon slot is empty before I cast the spell. Cool. Alright. So, last time we talked about the Actor, the Explorer, and the Instigator. And we also talked about how... I have a key for something. Must be something else on the other floor that I missed, but that's okay. Yeah, in the Instigator. And we talked about how the Instigator isn't necessarily bad for the game. In fact, they can be quite good if they're handled correctly and if they themselves are not horrible people. Oh boy, that looks like a bugbear. Oh, bye-bye. That hurt a lot. Wow. This is going to be a fun level. Already tell. So, this time, we shall start with the other player type that often is stigmatized, and not for necessarily bad reasons, but, the power gamer. So, the power gamer, we all know power gamers. They're the people who are so focused on the game mechanics, and on being wicked powerful, and always getting the best thing they can get. Or did we talk about the power gamer? I think we did talk about the power gamer, didn't we? Hold on. I need to check my notes. We did talk about the power gamer. On to the Slayer. Sorry. I can tell it's been like a week. So the Slayer. The Slayer is similar to the power gamer because they often go for the same types of builds and playstyle and like kind of overall playthrough. Yeah, I did talk about Minimax. Okay, so the Slayer is slightly different from the power gamer because the Slayer is just they're just into fighting. They just want to kill monsters and enjoy the combat. So they're kind of like a power gamer, except they're easier to please because they don't really need you to worry too much about trying to balance mechanics. Like they don't necessarily care about, super niche tactics and strategies and stuff that are like kind of borderline broken. They really just care about what's going to help me kill the monsters the best. And so they're going to be interested in power, but that's not their only motivation. You'll see this kind of thing, like people who just want to mindlessly carve through enemies because they don't want to have to think too much. They just want to turn their brain off and enjoy a little bit of a fun gameplay. Or maybe they're very tactical. They like to engage with the game significantly and play around with the battle tactics, and they want to try cool new maneuvers and experimenting with people who enjoy like games like Fire Emblem or XCOM, things like that, who want to move around the board and experiment a lot that way. They might. What is that? Oh goodness, I don't like the looks of that at all. Oh my god. What is that? What is that? That's horrifying. God. So a Slayer wants nothing else. These are the people who are like, they're bored when you're doing anything that isn't combat. Like, it's like, oh my god, can you guys finish talking to the noble? He's already given us the quest. Let's just go. Let's go kill stuff. And sometimes there's that image of them stacking dice when there's no combat happening because they don't want to be engaged. They're not engaged with what else is happening. And that doesn't necessarily, that's not all Slayers, but that is a common thing that they haven't, that they do tend to do. So everyone, I think, who plays D&D, or at least to a pretty high percentage, have a bit of a Slayer in them, right? Everybody enjoys fighting the monsters and defeating them and doing cool things in combat, and like everyone likes that stuff. Just like everybody has a bit of power gamer in them. Like, it's part of the game. If you don't enjoy that part of the game, if you don't enjoy combat, if you don't enjoy the beating up the monsters and all that, like, you probably should be playing a different game, because D&D is very much a game about fighting monsters. Like, it really is. So if you don't want to do that, there are other systems that might be more to your interest. And that's not to say that you shouldn't play D&D. I'm just saying that the game is designed around the idea that there will be lots of combat. So if you don't like the combat, you're gonna have to figure something else out. Oh, that's neat. Like that. That's really cool. Oh god, it's one of these things. Oh, I need my hammer. Thank you. That hurt. Ooh. Good food. Actually, I'm just gonna eat that. Yum, yum, yum. So a Slayer, they will optimize similarly to a power gamer. They might not go with crazy complicated builds. Like, they're not gonna go with the what is it called? The Cthulhu cheese grater or whatever, that warlock build with spike growth. Like, they're not gonna go into really ridiculous builds. They're probably just gonna pick simpler options. Like, they're probably gonna go with a barbarian or a wizard with tons of evocation spells. Like, they're gonna go with whatever's just gonna be the cool, like, I hit them really hard options, versus the power gamer, which is gonna go for, like, usually they go for much more interesting builds that let them do really specific things. Like, they try to push the envelope. So that's one way you can help differentiate them. But a Slayer will tend to spend less time on story elements and role playing, and they'll basically just, like, the game isn't, the story is just an excuse for them to fight the monsters. Ordenkainen's sword. Okay. Well, first I'm gonna get my hammer back. Secondly, we're gonna add that to my spell book. Can't. Where is my spell? Oh, it's right there. Bam. So they're going to spend less time on story elements. Again, that doesn't mean that's not what they're interested in. It's a means for them to get where they want. So they're not going to be super, like, involved in a lot of the stuff. Although there might be some specific things, like, obviously if you involve their character's backstory, they'll probably be interested, even if they are a Slayer or a power gamer or whatever. Like, that's usually a pretty good way to get them involved, no matter what. But a Slayer is just less interested in that than some other player types might be. Uh-oh. They will also tend to lead the group to combat as a resolution of other means. Yeah, so that is one of the downsides that they can be, is that they do have a tendency to prefer the combat option. So, you know, if you're DM and you're providing the ability to talk their way out of a solution or out of a situation, or to like you can kind of do like this little side quest to help these guys out instead of killing them all, like or you're presented with a moral dilemma, like they're probably going to pick whichever option gives them violence. And that is something that you will want to watch out for. Because the Slayer is going to want to take bold action all the time. So they're pretty easy to engage. You spring unexpected battles when they start to look a little bored. Like, I usually say, like, random encounters are not, like, super great. But when you have a Slayer in the party, they do help a lot. Because they'll be like, oh, we're going to go traveling through the wilderness. Oh, I hope we get to fight some wolves. And, you know, so you can throw some wolves at them. Like, you can throw little random encounters, little surprise attacks that get their blood pumping, get them ready to go. I leveled up, so I'm going to save here. We're going to go TK2-3. So that's the easiest way to keep them engaged. But making some battles, and if you're going to do that, like, you don't need every combat to be super overly complex and interesting. Like, I usually say, if you're going to do a combat, try to make it like a puzzle that's solved with weapons and whatever. You don't have to do that all the time if you're trying to engage a Slayer character or Slayer player, because chances are they're not super interested in always having a battle that is like super mechanics heavy. They just want to hit things sometimes. So you should still have those types of encounters, because otherwise everybody gets bored. But you can use a variation of simple and complex encounters to keep them engaged, keep them interested, let things progress without getting too ridiculous. Oh, I see. It bounces off enemies. Okay. I'm still kind of learning how this spell works, but it's really handy. Another thing that a Slayer is going to really like is if you are very vivid in your descriptions of combat. Obviously, you want to make sure everyone's, you know, where everybody's comfort level is with certain things like gore, but they're going to really like a Slayer is the type of character who, when they say, oh, I'm going to swing my sword at the orc, they're going to want, if they hit, they're going to want to hear like how they've damaged it, what the orc's looking like. You know, they are interested in the graphic, visceral combat that is being enacted. That's what they're there for. That's what they want to have vividly described. That's what they want to be able to do with their character. Turn the page. I think these are sometimes cursed. Fire-based spell. I had the troll to utterly destroy it. Okay, well, that's just telling me that I need to kill trolls with fire by. I'm good at this game. Okay. And then another thing you can do is let the Slayer, give them a role to do in combat. Put them in charge of tracking initiative, for example. I don't usually do that. Like, I as the DM like to have initiative because I don't ever want to ask who's up next on initiative. So I'm still going to keep track of it myself. But the you can encourage the Slayer to have some involvement in keeping track of initiative, because that way they know what's going on in combat, and they can kind of keep momentum moving of their own volition, because this is what they want. This is the part of the game they like. This is where they are going to thrive. So give them the chance to do that. But yes, as Bugcatcher Mike has specified, you want to avoid them kind of rushing past all the other challenges just to get to the next fight. You don't want them to skip through things or deliberately blow certain things to get to the fight. You don't want them to kill creatures that the players, you know, are supposed to be interacting with because they got bored. You don't want them to antagonize the other NPCs and stuff to get them and goading them into a fight, and then, you know, letting that work. Like, there are ways you can mitigate this, and like I said, as long as you just keep, like, players will understand that the game isn't just straight combat. Like, that's not what D&D is, and if you want to play it that way, you can play it like a war miniatures game, but, you know, with the understanding that that's not how many other people like to play. So if you're going to do it that way, you're probably going to have to find a different group of players who want to play the game that way. And that's fine. But that's, you know, so because they understand that, you shouldn't really have a major issue. I'm just trying to find a hidden door here. You shouldn't really have a situation where they're completely unwilling to compromise and say like, no, I just want to do combat all the time. Because if that is the case, then they don't belong at your table, right? If you're not interested in doing combat constantly, then don't do it. Just say like, well, you know, we have other people at the table and they want to do social encounters, they want to do puzzles, they want to do all this other stuff. So, you know, you're going to have to accept the fact that combat is only going to be occasional. And if they are fine with that and they accept that, great. And if not, then you have to find a solution with them. Because you don't want them to become those antagonizers who are constantly mucking up the plot by attacking everything, right? And having to retcon stuff because it's like, oh god, no, we didn't want that. And so, yeah, you don't want to get into that mess. My spell is gone. Guy out and then rest in this room. There's got to be a hidden door here somewhere. I can't remember if detect magic lets me see that stuff, which I think I have. I do. I'm gonna rest first. Get my hammer back. And what we're gonna do is I'm going to detect magic. Oh, I gotta take my armor off first, right? So I only have utility spells on my wizard side, and then here we're going to cast. Oh yeah, this is a magic sword. Not handy to know. Shield back. All right, we're gonna see if that helps me find hidden. Oh yeah, there's gotta be. There's definitely a hidden door because I don't know where else to go. There is this other door down here, but it's locked. I think it needs to be opened from the other side, unless I missed something. But I can head back there and we'll take a look. Keep an eye out for any potential weirdness. Door won't budge. That's for that door. Like, I would think that it has something to do with this small room, but there's nothing in here. Well, that's tricky because I'm pretty sure I've checked all along here, all down here, all up this way. I don't see, again, unless there's something I'm missing with this other door, which is weird. Usually this game isn't like, once you get the hang of how this game works, you normally don't have this type of issue where you can't figure out where to go. It usually becomes pretty clear pretty early on. Does detect magic hidden doors? Oh, okay, no, yeah, that's just true seeing. Okay. Well, that's still good to have it active, I guess. Don't hurt. I'm really not sure where to go here. This is the first time I've gotten this stuck in a while. Give me a moment here, guys. I legitimately, like, it's gotta be here. There's no other solution here. Like, where else? Because I know there are doors that can only be opened from the other side. And that's probably what that door is. Sometimes you get lucky and a monster opens them. Ooh. Definitely no secret doors here. I don't know if I thoroughly checked all the way up here. I did. Huh. Well, where the bloody heck am I supposed to go? Wild. I don't see a teleporter or anything either. I think I checked this room out, but this is the only other room that would make sense. I guess I'll go back there and just do another check, because maybe I missed something, but man, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, go down this way and check this room, because I hear stuff, but I don't see nothing. Because I checked this passageway too. Like I don't know. That's so weird. Oh my god. Okay, there we go. Okay. Huh. I guess I'm like, I don't know what else to do though. Like, that's kind of the problem. Like, I would say I'm just gonna kind of goof around and figure stuff out, but like, I don't even know where else to look, because there's no like other areas that are thin enough to fit secret passage. It's got to be either here or in here, but I've checked all here. So unless there's some way to open this door that I'm unaware of, I don't know what else to do. I do have a key for another door somewhere, so maybe I go back up to the first floor and I can figure that out, but... Oh, I think the problem with that one floor was I found a map and then I couldn't figure out where I hadn't been, so there's probably a door up there I haven't gone through yet. That won't be affecting this floor, because all the floors are... I turned off the option where there would be things that are multi-floor capable. I don't want to... Seems to be missing here. Oh my god, you could barely... Look at that. So this one has the eye, this one doesn't. So you got to put the eye there. Holy cow, that blends in so much with the green. I didn't even notice that. All right, and there's immediately another key needed here. Okay, thank God. Okay, sorry about that. Oh my God. Okay, we're back in business here. Let's get back to the topic at hand. Okay, now that's done with. I need to get my hammer back out. Okay. So, after the Slayer, we have the Storyteller. So the Storyteller is kind of like the actor, in a way. They're very interested in the story aspect of things, and that's really what they're here for. They're here to tell a story. The main thing is that like they're gonna prefer the narrative of the game over just about anything else. Like like they don't even necessarily care about their individual character motivations as much as they care about what's good for the story. So they're more willing to work with you on things to improve the story of the game, even if it doesn't necessarily work for their character. Like they'll try to find a way to make it happen. These are usually the ones who are like chronicling the adventure, or not necessarily the note takers, but are like very interested in what's happening in the story and are trying to do things that will let them get more involved in the story. As far as they're concerned, the rules are they're there to supplement the story. They're there to provide the framework for the story and give a way for things to happen that otherwise wouldn't occur due to random chance, right? You know, a bad roll leads to an amazing scene that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise because, you know, they wouldn't have written it that way. Or they couldn't even conceive of how this would work out, and, you know, the dice just pretty much allow it to go a certain way, and that becomes this awesome story. These are the storytellers. But yeah, they're going to care more about the story than anything else, whether it be rules or character motivations. So they're more likely to go for like the rule of cool and that kind of thing. Like they're going to be really into that concept. So these are the people who provide you with a light novel for their character backstories. They are also going to they're going to be asking you tons of questions about the lore of the world to make sure that their character fits in with it as best as possible. And they are going to spend a lot of time trying to make sure that whatever their character is, it fits the story. So like an actor might make you could say we're playing a survival horror, guys, and an actor will say, well, that's fine, I want to play this really jovial paladin who is like very positive and is always, you know, looking out for their friends and is very helpful and is constantly trying to do the right thing and is always involved with the light. And, you know, you're saying, okay, well, you know, this is a horror game, right? And they're like, yeah, I want them to be in that situation. Whereas a storyteller would probably be more like, oh, it's a horror game, I'm going to play whatever character I think is the best fit for a horror game. And so that's one of the big differences between those two types that you'll often find. Go heal mess. All right. Ba-doom, ba-doom. They usually like big dramatic scenes. You know, they're interested in what is the big, like, holy cow, that was amazing, I can't believe, like they want that story to go home to. They want to be thinking about, they want to have that image in their head, or they want to like go home and like write it out and think about it, and, you know, they want to listen to music and replay the events in their head. Like they're looking for that big awesome story moment that is that you can only get through a type of game like D&D. They are usually into like recurring characters. Like they enjoy NPCs that are constantly showing up, and they like they kind of get attached to these certain NPCs, and they enjoy the story that comes from them, the recurring appearance of them, how they are intertwined with the story and the plot. And so you have like these, because then it makes them feel like, oh, like this is the real world, there's people doing things, there's a story going on with many different factors involved. So that's kind of one of the things that they're into. And they usually are kind of only interested in adventures that include some level of plot, right? Like they're not going to be that interested in a dungeon crawl. You know, and even if the dungeon crawl is very light on plot, they may be interested, they may not be interested. It's going to depend on the person. Heck yeah, more hit points. So they do. You're not going to necessarily have them where it's like, oh, I only want like crazy political drama with all these factions and world build. It's like, no, they want a story. Even if the story is there's a crazy guy in this dungeon who's doing bad things, you need to go in and stop him. As long as that story gets touched on at least, you know, a couple times a session, they'll be happy. They don't need to constantly be involved in ridiculous amounts of heavy story. They just need to know that there is a story, and they need to be interested in that story, and they need to be able to have a way to influence that story. Because, like, here's the thing, right? If there's a really cool story and they can't interact with it in any way, they're going to be a lot less interested in it. They'll still probably be interested, because the whole point of a storyteller is that they like telling that story, but they want to tell the story. They don't want to read the story. They want to be involved in the story. They want to be able to use their own minds to engage with the story and tell the story. So that's why they're the storyteller. So you have to give them the ability to do that. Some other things that you can engage them with is ensure that their character's background has really good development. You know, work with them to really build out what their backstory is and how it interacts with the main story. These are going to be the players who want the big bad evil guy to be like their brother, or they want to have it be the guy who burned down their village or something. Like, they want to have that major involvement with what they're doing and have it be very linked into what their character motivations are, so that they can tell a really cool story. They're going to be less interested in random, you know, bugbear who shows out of nowhere and has no relation to their character, because they're going to wonder, like, well, where's the story going? Where is this? You know, they could be okay with it if this bugbear has an interesting story, but by engaging their character, I always say, right, you want to engage your players, engage their characters. And so engaging their backstories with the plot is a surefire way to get the storytellers involved. Again, they're very similar to the actor. There just are some differences. Just like the Slayer and the Power Gamer are very similar, right? There are some crossovers for sure. Another thing to do is... ooh, my hammer gone? Yeah, it is gone. Last one. Makes the game wait here. Oh my god. Bye-bye. Come on. Come on. There we go. I need to heat. Oh god. Oh god. Get away from me. Get away from me. Bit acid. I don't know what they are. They look like they have beards or tentacles or something. I'm not sure. I'll look it up later. Okay. Wow, there's a lot of enemies here. Holy cow. All right. Yeah. Having at least one player like that is good, because it gives the whole group more purpose and personalizes the story for everyone. I agree. I think you want at least, like, I think I've talked about this in another stream, where it's like you need a leader, or, which isn't really the right term, I think. You want someone in the party who is the driving force. Because when you don't have that person, everyone kind of just stands around and, like, looks at each other waiting for someone else to do the thing. And so you do need that person. And ooh, that's a boss monster. Is that a zombie? Ghoul? Not a ghoul. White, maybe. That means we're close to the next level. There we go. He's gonna have good loot. Ooh, a good amulet. That is not magical. Oh, a scroll of spiritual hammer. Sick. I guess it's a non-magical amulet? Something? Nope. Okay. But yeah, no, totally in agreement. Because if everybody in the party, if you have like a power gamer, you have a what is it, an instigator, you have a like a thinker, which we'll talk about later, but like you have these other, having that storyteller is going to be the crux of the adventure, because they're going to be the ones driving the story home. They're going to be ones invested in what's happening. They're going to be connecting the dots and leading the party through the story. And that's a great way to facilitate them and allow them to do what they want in the game. And they'll kind of naturally fall into the sort of party leader generally. Either them or the actor will often do that, because they're going to be the ones who are the most like engaged in progressing and doing new things. But it's not unheard of for someone like a power gamer to do that either, because they're just going to be a power gamer or a Grave Mist. Okay. That sounds terrifying. Yeah, so I mean, oftentimes just the person with the dominant personality is going to take over as a leader. But yeah, it is really nice if the leader, if the driver of the party is someone who is a storyteller, because they are going to get you probably the best results overall in the game. I think that is 100%. You probably want to include a little bit of plot in every session for the storyteller, because they're here for the story. And if you're doing a dungeon crawl, you know, and there isn't any way for them to get more story by the end of that dungeon crawl, they're probably not going to enjoy that session very much. It depends, obviously, right? Like, again, we're talking about very generalization here, but you're going to want to try and include something for them to latch onto every single session. Each session, you know, even then, like, multiple times a session is probably even better. Like, story is one of those things that you really can't, it's hard to overdo it, because even in like combat heavy games, you can still have a lot of story. You can have a lot of reasons why the combat is happening. You can have a lot of interesting story things happen during a combat without it getting too out of control. Racers. Hold up. Are these magical? They are. Okay. We are going to save them. Because if they're cursed, I don't want to wear them. So they're not giant strength. They might be armor. Hold on, what's my AC right now? My AC, 4. Take them off, 5. With my chainmail, 0. Okay, so these are bracers of armor. Not super useful for this character, but I might as well keep them on for now. Oh, this is a magic amulet. And this is a magic ring. And this is a magic cloak. Hold up. I'm decked out in gear. I don't know what this cloak does. 3 armor class? I guess it gives me more armor. Okay, well that's fine. I want the higher amount of armor. Not sure what this does. What does this do? Recall? Recall. That's annoying. Cool. And what does this ring do, I wonder? Don't know. But it's not cursed, so I might as well equip it. Alright, we're going to load the game so I'm not 10,000 miles away from where I want to be. Okay. But yeah, the storyteller, they're going to want story, and I encourage you to put story in as much as possible. But also, like, get them to be the chronicler. Like I said, like they probably already are the chronicler, but like assign that to them. Give that a job for them to do, because then if there's between combat turns, if they're not interested in what's going on with combat, like they have something they can do. They can reorganize their notes. They can kind of reread them over to remind themselves of what's happening. They can think of cool things they want to do with the story based on what their notes say. They can potentially like cross-examine what they know and what's going on here and there, and they can make additional notes, or they can refine their notes. Like, it just gives them stuff to do, and they may not necessarily know that they should or that they could do those things. And so specifically calling it out and say, this will heal me, specifically giving them the ability to, or that as their job, will really improve things. Because we always, what, there was a trap? Oh my god. It's a good idea. Yeah, I mean, you know, the important thing is everyone's having fun. And a lot of what I get from people when they ask me questions and stuff is they have a player who does X and they don't know how to keep them having fun. Like, generally speaking, if they're coming to your sessions and they're not complaining, they're probably having fun. And you can ask them, check in with them, say like, hey, you know, you notice you're really quiet. Do you know, is there anything you'd like me to change with the game? Or are you enjoying yourself? And they might be. But it doesn't hurt to understand what they might be missing or what they could do to further enhance. I'm not going to use the coin thing because I'm going to heal myself in a bit to rest anyway. It doesn't hurt to have some options to give to these players for extra things for them to do. So officially putting them in charge of the Chronicles is great. Plus also, if you're a DM who's very scatterbrained, having a storyteller keep track of everything, especially if you have like a Discord server for them to put it all on, it's super handy, because then you have notes you can go to that are meticulous, and it keeps a really good record of what the players know. Because sometimes as a DM, you tend to forget the difference between what's happening and what the players know and what they think is happening. And I'll tell you, it's something else to watch your players theorize about what something means live, like in a chat. Like if you have a Discord server and I'm not wearing my armor, and your players are looking at it and saying, "Ooh, I bet the vision means this," or "Look at this phrase, it could mean that." And you're looking at that, think obviously what it all means, or maybe you don't. You're using this as a way to figure out what it means, which is another sly little thing you can do. It's a really cool thing to watch your story unfold in the minds of your players, and that can be a lot of fun. So, yeah, again, like I said in the last one, the 4th edition DMG often will suggest to give certain roles to your players, such as initiative tracker, quest maker, maybe playing as an NPC that has joined the party or something like that. Like, that may work for some tables. I personally am not a fan of that, just because I am a bit control-y as a DM. I like to have control. I have let players come in as an NPC, and it has worked out really well, and actually like improved things significantly, and it has really enhanced the story. So I do like doing that, but I don't know if I would like having one of my regular players be an NPC. I would rather bring in another person to play as that NPC now and again when that NPC is needed. Like that I like. I am not as much a fan of letting one of the players take on the role of like a squire or something. Like I personally like to have full control of my NPCs, because then if I want to do something with that NPC later, and I want it to be a surprise, or I want it to be a twist, or I want it to be, whatever. Now if the player is playing as that NPC, it's weird now if I all of a sudden start taking over. Like, so I don't know. And the players will make it clear which NPCs they do and do not want things to happen to. The goblin they adopted, or the kobold that they've adopted. Like, you can threaten them, but you always, the players are never going to let anything bad happen to them. So you may let them play a character like that, because if you know you're never going to do anything horrible to them, then maybe that works. But I don't know. I feel like it takes out the immersion if the players are playing as another NPC in the world. Like I feel like that distorts things a little bit personally, but it works for some people. So, what you want to watch out for with the storyteller is that they do sometimes run into the problem of main character-itis, where they want their character to be the main character. They want to be the one who's calling all the shots. What is this? Key? He goes in here. Where? No. Crystal key? There it is. And then this. I don't think I have that. What the heck? Where have I not been? What have I not picked up? Bet you it's a hidden room somewhere. Somewhere up here. There's nowhere for a hidden room to be anywhere down here, so it's gotta be something up in this area. Oh my god, there's so many enemies. So I gotta go back up this way and then back all the way up that way. Okay, that's easy enough. Oh, I don't have my spell. Hold up. We're gonna rest. I want my spells back, thank you. Cool. Spiritual hammer. I'm gonna keep using this strategy until it doesn't work anymore. Because these things hit hard. Especially because I am like a triple class, so my HP isn't the best. Come on! Oh my god, okay. Oh jeez. But yeah, storytellers, they do have that tendency to main character themselves. Because they're so invested. There's a hidden door there, he just came through it. Because of the fact they're so invested in the story, they sometimes will want to be so involved that they're like, I want to be the main character. So you do want to watch out for that, because no one character should be the main character. You can certainly do character arcs. Like today, like this, for the next little while, we're going to focus on so-and-so's backstory and how they and how that is interacting with the main plot. And then the next, you say, now we're going to do this person's backstory and how that interacts with the plot. And you can do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that way. But you don't ever want there to be a situation where, like, oh, you're playing the chosen one in the entire plot. Like, I'm playing Frodo and everything is about me. And if I fail, everyone fails. It doesn't, because then you're getting rid of the team effort. And some storytellers who are in groups with non-storytellers will feel like they deserve to be the main character because they're the one who cares about the story. And like, it's not how it works, and that's not good behavior. So we don't want to encourage that. I do think you can sort of have characters, ooh, a dart, who are close to main characters, like maybe like the BBEG is their father or their cousin or something. It's like they have a very major involvement in the main story, but the other characters still have a great deal of involvement. Like the lieutenant of the BBEG is the barbarian's old war buddy. Right, so like, yeah, he's not the main villain, but he's still heavily involved in the story. And when they fight that, like a perfect example of this is like Vox Machina, right? Like everybody gets a chance to go through their own kind of backstory, which gets explored, but it's all overall related to what's going on. But you wouldn't say that one of them is a specific main character. They just all get their chance to shine. So spotlight characters do not main character. The other thing you want to avoid with storytellers is that they don't kind of take control of the story, wrest it from you as the GM and from the other players, and start trying to dictate what the other players do in the game to get their idea of what the story should be. And that includes the players, and that includes NPCs, right? So if they're like, oh, I had this really cool idea of like what it would be like if the warlock's patron showed up, and then we like did this thing where we tried to bargain a deal with him, and it goes bad, and then we have to like fight him as a, like, sure, you had this cool idea for a scene, but if you're like gonna try and basically say like, oh, warlock, you should be doing this and you should be doing this and this will be so cool and you need to do this, and you're trying to dictate what the other player should do. And I'm talking like not giving advice, like aggressively saying like, this is what we need to do, guys, this is how the story is going to go, this is what's going to give us the best story. Or you're straight up taking the agency away by literally saying like, oh, the warlock is going to do this, and you look at the GM and you say the fighter attacks that guy. And the fighter's like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, no, you should. No. But like the story, it's gonna be so good if you do. Like, just do it. And you can you know what I mean? Like, you don't want that. You don't want that to happen. Every player should have their autonomy. And realistically, whatever that person thinks is a good story might not be what everyone else thinks is a good story. So you get basically, I guess, narcissism. Just watch out for narcissism, because storytellers tend to be prone to that type of behavior if left to kind of stew in the thought processes that lead them there. How do I get here? I just gotta go this way. So moving on, I'm gonna adjust my notes here. We get to the thinker. The thinker. Hold on. Check this. Oh, okay. The thinker. The thinker is the people who like puzzles. I think this is probably the most rare of players as far as I'm concerned. I don't often come across these types of players. They do exist. I have definitely been around them. Elisa Teague, for example, is a great perfect representation of this. But they're not someone that I see commonly day to day. So the thinker likes to reflect on their challenges that are presented. They try to come up with the best ways to overcome them. They like to kind of plan things out. They want to minimize the risk as much as possible. They want to minimize the use of the resources. They're going to find the simplest solution. So, whereas a normal player might just say, oh, we need to get over there, let's just Misty Step. The thinker will be like, dude, we don't need to Misty Step. Let's just take a bunch of trees and lash them together, and we'll create a bridge, and then using the bridge, like they're gonna come up with more simpler solutions, or other options that don't involve the use of their resources. Or they're gonna do things like, oh, we're really in a bind here. I'm gonna scan my character sheet, try to find items that I have, and see what the best, like, oh, if I take this item and I use it with this spell, I can do this, which will allow me to overcome like the current obstacle and perform in a way that would be beyond what our normal capabilities are. And so thinkers are really cool. I like thinkers. I think Tommy is probably who I would consider to be a thinker, because he tends to really like gung-ho on the ideas. And like I said, Elisa Teague, perfect example. Like, she's 100% one of these. Because they like to use creative solutions. They're not interested in the simple, like, as much as I say like, oh, they'll try to find a way to do things without using resources. Like, the simple solution is to just cast Misty Step. But they don't want to do that. They want to have this other concept. There we go. And they're interested in coming up with really awesome, convoluted, or complex ideas that allow them to reach their goal with minimal, like I said, minimal risk and minimal resource usage. And they're the ones that are more likely going to be involved in tactical aspects of the battle, rather than just like, oh god, what is that? Oh god, what is that? Is it a shadow? What the heck is this? What am I looking at here? Get away from me. I get it. Ooh, that was scary. Did not enjoy that. Heal up a bit. That really hurt. Oof. Yikes. Yeah, Mike, I'd say you're probably a thinker. If you're not solving the problem with at least 3 different spells combined with 2 items, what are you even doing? I think the thinker and the instigator tends to get along pretty well, because you can often kind of combine the 2 thought processes and end up with a really interesting situation. And the thinker is a really good way to temper the chaos of the instigator, because the thinker will be like, oh, I need you to do that thing because I need your brand of chaos to solve this problem. So like, there's a lot of simpatico, I think that's the right word, that you can have there. So thinkers, they look at pretty much everything as a puzzle. They see, oh, healing thing right here. They see everything you present them as something that needs to be overcome, right? So they're going to see most of the challenges that you have as things to be solved. So like, if you throw something at them that like a puzzle or some sort of weird trap, like they're the ones who are going to be like, okay, well, hold on, everybody, let's figure this out. Oh, I do not like these things. Oh my god, 12 damage. I do not like these things at all. Dark level 5, heck yeah. That's scary. That's a scary amount of damage. And that's going to be everywhere on this dungeon. Awesome. Thinking outside the box is the best way to describe the thinker I've been. Yeah, thinking outside the box. Looking for new solutions to problems rather than just using whatever's just available on your character sheet. Very old school style thinking. A lot of older players tend to be thinkers because that's just how you played the game back then. So that tends to be something you'll see often. But they often will choose their actions carefully and try to find the best possible results. So they're looking for whatever's going to give them whatever's going to give them the best possible result. Really, like they're looking for what can I do that isn't going to compromise and just perhaps. What am I going to do that it's going to get me from point A to point B with kind of what I'm trying to accomplish. So they're not going to say like, oh, well, so it looks like we have to pick this one or this one. They're going to try to find a way to pick both if both are advantageous, and then interact with everything until they can see. They're going to get all the information and make a very informed decision because they want to ensure that they're getting everything they can out of whatever the problem is. They are perfectly happy to have no action, no drama, no tension. Like, they're not interested necessarily in the nuances of the story. They just want to solve the problems. They just want another problem. Give me problems to solve, and let me find things to do, and give me things that require my brain. Like that's what they're looking for. Problem solving. Turns can take some time, unfortunately. True. Sometimes it can be quite convoluted because you're going to get into a discussion with the DM about like, okay, what if I want to try this? Can I do this? And I know technically this isn't a rule, but I feel like this is viable. And can I do this? And if I try doing that, does this work? And there's a shadow in front of me. So definitely you can run into some lengthy turns, but usually it's entertaining. Like more often than not, when the thinker's like rolling out their plan, like it's usually everybody's just like, oh my god, like this will never work, or they're like, oh my god, that's awesome, you have to do that. And so it's usually not boring, which is nice. And because that's the thing, like they want time to consider all the options rather than just taking bold action. So they're going to be a little bit at odds with the Slayer because they don't. Oh my god, that is so painful. They don't necessarily want to. Man, this is rough. Oh my god, get away from me. Yeah, they're not going to be like, oh, just run in there and attack. No, they're gonna look at say, okay, how far away am I? What's above him? How deep is that lake? Like, about where am I in relation to over there? Is that an action to do that? Or like, they're gonna get all the information and then they're gonna make a decision. As you said, it's time consuming. And that tends to be a hallmark of the thinker, is that their turns are going to take a bit longer because they're trying to examine all the angles. So engaging them is, I mean, you could probably figure out the best way to engage them. You want to include encounters that require problem solving. Don't just, this doesn't look good. Two of these guys? Don't just throw like, oh, they got to defeat 2 goblins in this room, and then in the next room it's like, oh, it's 3 goblins, and in the next room it's a carrion crawler with a goblin riding him. It's like, there's not much for a thinker to do in those cases because the fights aren't, there's nothing interesting about the rooms, about the encounters, about what's going on. 2 more hit points. Excellent. I'm getting a lot of experience from these things. I'm okay with that. So give problems to be solved. Reward the planning and the tactics. So if the barbarian running in and smacking them yields the same result as the thinker coming up with some really crazy convoluted plan. So in continuing with what Bugcatcher Mike is talking about, where you spend a lot of time, you come up with an awesome plan. You're like, oh my god, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to strap this polymorphed guy to a bomb and I'm going to throw it so that he's going to like, become huge, and then it's going to crush the guy, and then because it's on a bomb, it's going to explode. This weird, awesome plan they have. If they spend all the time coming up with this crazy, awesome plan, and then you're just like, okay, yeah, but it doesn't work though. Like that's not great. Like they're not going to enjoy that. They're actually probably going to be really annoyed that you let them come up with this awesome plan, and then we're just like, yeah, it doesn't work though. So reward it. Now, it doesn't have to go the way that they or originally expected it to, or originally wanted it to. You can throw a twist in there, or you can have there be a caveat or a side effect that they maybe didn't expect, and that's fun. But just outright not letting something work that they had this really cool idea for, or like they're like, oh well, logically, if I do this, this should work and this should work, and then saying like, well, no, I don't want you to do that, or being a stickler for the rules and being like, no, rules don't let you do that. That's not an option you can do in the game, so no, you can't do that, and not letting them even like, and not even like entertaining what they might want to try to do. These are ways that you're. This is not going to be a good way to keep a thinker engaged. So those are some. So that's definitely something you want to focus on for these types of players. And on that note, if the plan they came up with effectively wins them the fight, like it makes a joke out of whatever your encounter is, whether it be they found a loophole in a riddle, or they figured something out about the puzzle in the room that if they do a thing, it actually like trivializes the big threat of that area, and so it's like, oh, so they've just bypassed this cool thing that I spent a ton of time working on. It's like, let that happen. Let that happen. Oh, there's two of them. Oh god. Gotta keep a good distance on these things. Oh no, my spell expired. Oh no, oh no, 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 no. Oof, we're getting tight here. Okay. 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 This is where the floors actually start to get pretty hazardous, I guess. Or at least those things are dangerous. I'm not really concerned with these other guys, whatever they are. All right, I need to rest. All right. Then I'm going to cast Spiritual Hammer. Go on with our day. Save too after that. Save. So yeah, allow their crazy plan to work, and allow it to, and don't do this all the time, right? Like sometimes you're gonna be like, all right, cool, it's gonna give you a pretty big win, but it's not gonna totally one side landslide this encounter. Like you're still gonna have to deal with it. Oh, that's freaky. Oh god! Oh god! Holy crap, that's scary. I'm leveling up like a baller with these things, though. These things have a ton of experience points. I think these are shadow mages or something like that, and they're really, they got some good powerful spells on them, but they're very weak and they give tons of experience. They just hit like a truck. Thought you could sneak up on me, did ya? No. Too sly for you. Good level of farm. Might do that. But yeah, so allow one-sided wins every now and again. Reward them. That's what the thinker coming up with a cool idea. It's a cool idea. Let it work. Just be careful you don't overextend that, right? So if they do something that you think is a cool idea and you let it work really well and it does a ton of damage or like really gets them out of a jam, you want to make sure that whatever that was, it's not all of a sudden now going to be the default choice, right? So what that means is if they were able to swing from the chandelier and crash it out on their enemy and it ended up doing like 50 damage for whatever reason, if they have the means to do that, they're going to do it again, because that is now the most efficient way for them to engage in any form of combat. They're going to try to replicate what happened in any way they can. And as soon as a player comes up with something, like, there are going to be ways that you didn't know were possible to fit a chandelier into rooms. Like they're going to carry one around with them. They're going to build their whole character around doing this because they now know that this is the most efficient way for them to defeat their enemies. So you want to be careful that whatever plans they come up with don't kind of become so powerful that it overrides everything else that their characters can do. And and a lot of that is just being careful with the numbers and being honest with them. Like if you overestimated something and you're like, oh crap, that really should not have done as much power as it did, then you just tell them. You say, hey, I know that when you did this cool thing, this is how I ruled it. I've been thinking about it, and that's a little ridiculous. So going forward, that will not work that way. But I will not take that win away from you, right? Like, we're not going to take what happened away from them. We're just going to say, hey, if you try that again, it will not work the same. I've done this on stream even. Like, where Sam came up with an idea in Deadliest Dungeon. It worked really well, and then I was like, that was cool. But like, we can't, like, that can't be a thing that works for the rest of the dungeon. So we'll just come up with a way for it not to work, and then we'll go forward. And that's what we did. So you may occasionally have to roll back, because in the heat of the moment, you might not think about all the ramifications about what you've just said works. You're just looking for a cool thing to happen, and then next thing you know, your whole game's busted because you allowed something. So you can do take backsies. That's fine. You're the GM. You're allowed to do that. And but just be considerate of that when you're giving them that one-sided win, and don't let that prevent you from giving them that win, because you can always go back and deal with it later. It's not a set in stone thing. I mean, you probably don't want to do that very often. You don't want to be wishy-washy, but it's okay to sometimes mess up. We're all human, and we're not professional game designers for the most part, so like, it's okay. One of the things that is suggested for the thinker is to let them come up with quests. This is one of those ones that, like, that might work for some leather armor. That might work for some groups, but I am not personally, I gotta reorganize this inventory. I'm not personally interested in that. Like, for me, again, it takes a lot of the immersion out of it if the players are writing or helping coming up with some of the quests. Now, that's not to say that there could be a situation where the party is not sure what to do or where to go, and so the thinker might be like, well, why don't we try doing this, or why don't we look into this, or why don't we see if there's anything we can do here, and like having them be maybe the driver or the catalyst. Right? We talked about sort of the party driver a while back, like having them focus that they're the ones leading the party along and progressing them through whatever's going on, because they're coming up with ideas for what the party can do. That's perfect. Like, I don't have a problem with that. And again, if you want them to be someone who's coming up with different quest ideas, by all means. I just personally don't find that to be interesting in my experience. Kiting. Oh. What am I doing for experience? Oof. Oh, my armor class went up. Sick. Open it up. Oh my goodness. Boss monster. What is that? Blackguard or a Death Knight? Oh, he's fast. Oh, I'm boxed in. Get him. Get him. Oh my god. Come on. Dang it. Ghost Warrior. That dude was tough. Alright. I think I haven't saved in a little bit, so I think I lost some progress there, but nothing too detrimental. Should just be able to maneuver my way back through the dungeon. Anyway, but yeah, that's something you can do. Like I said, I don't know. I'd be curious to know if anybody either in chat or in the comments later, or on the Discord, like, I'd be curious to know if anyone has tried involving their players more with the actual, like, quest design and kind of running of the game and how that's gone. Like had them play as an NPC or had them, oh my goodness, have them play as an NPC or have them help design some of the quest or like that kind of stuff. Like I'd be curious to know how that's gone, because I just don't see it as something that makes sense to me in just the way that I run my games. So I'd be curious to get another perspective on that. So if you run games like that, hit me up. Let me know. I legitimately am interested. Like to save after. So problems with the thinker can be that they are constantly telling the other players what to do. Not the way the storyteller does, where they're trying to like take away the agency of characters, but like the thinker is kind of just tactically constantly being like, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And again, not in a advice way, but in a no, do this. Like, you do what I say or we're all going to die. Like, I am the leader, you must listen to me, I know what's going on, I am the smart one. That kind of thing. Treating the other players as if they're minions in like their tactical board game. Like that's not what you want. Which again, it's very similar to the storyteller downside or potential problem, which is like taking away player agency. It is that the thinker could be like, oh my God, don't do that. Why are you doing that? That's the dumbest thing ever. Don't do, and getting into that level of discussion. Like that's what you want to try and avoid, because that's, again, it's you're blaming the players for doing things. You are taking away the ability for them to be able to do what they want and play the character they want and play the way that they want. So you want to try and avoid that. I had some players out, so I ran some backstory games and had the players run different characters for a bit. How'd that go, Hutton? Are you saying like they played as like NPCs to flesh out the story of the world a little bit? Is that what you did? Because that's interesting. That's not necessarily like, I've done that. That I think is fine. Like I don't have a personal weird thing with that. I'm more so curious about like actively having a player play as like an NPC that is in the party or something. Like if they recruit a goblin or they get a squire and like so they're playing as two characters, them and their squire. Like I don't know. I find that a little weird. Maybe not the squire thing, but I definitely find it a little weird when it's like, oh, this NPC at your base of operations is being played by this person, and this NPC is being played by this person. Like Out of the Abyss has that, where at the beginning of Out of the Abyss, you're in a drow prison cell, and there's like 12 NPCs, and so the book recommends having some of those NPCs be played by by like your players, but some of them have like deep dark secrets and stuff that get unveiled later, and I'm like, there he is. I was like, that feels anticlimactic or less interesting. Oh, I balked myself again. When like another player is playing as this guy, this dude's gonna freaking destroy me. Oh my God. They played as NPCs for a one shot, just tell backstory. Yeah, that I've done that. I've been a player in one of those. I've DM'd that before. I like that idea. It's mainly when it's like, oh, I want you to play as this NPC who has this really cool reveal that has to do with this one location, but it's not going to be for sessions away. And like, do you tell the player that, or do you let them find out? But then how are they supposed to roleplay the character correctly? Like that's where my head can't kind of wrap around the concept. Because then you have like this weird dichotomy of them playing a character who doesn't know the secret, but then the other character does, and there's like other like that's kind of where it gets weird for me. Like that's where I'm not sure I agree with that idea. But so I'm curious if it's ever worked for anybody else. But the other thing is we talked about it with Bugcatcher Mike, is make sure that the thinker doesn't grind the game to a halt when they're considering all their tactical options. It's called analysis paralysis is a term that gets thrown around for it, where like they're so caught up in all of the options and things that they could do that they end up just sitting there not doing anything because they can't figure out what the best option is. Like that's really not great, because then everybody's just sitting around like, okay, dude, we want to move on, come on, let's go. And there are ways you can mitigate that. You can say like, hey, we want to try and keep things moving. Can you, like, when it gets to your turn, if you haven't done anything by 1 minute, or at least like started discussing what you're going to do within a minute. We know he's behind the flower gate, so I'm going to keep this door closed for as long as possible. You can also do things like, you can say, okay, you're up next, so make sure you come up with with what you're going to do. You can do things like, hey, can you maybe come up with some general basic strategies that you have for when you're still not sure what to do. That doesn't work as well, because the whole point of the thinker is that they try to find the most like optimal best case scenario for them to be able to do what they want to do. And if you're saying to them like, well, I just want you to have a default thing that if you don't know what to do, you can just rely on, it's like, but that's the antithesis of what they are. So that doesn't always work. And sometimes you just have to say like, hey, come on, we got to keep it moving. Just figure out something to do. And maybe if you get to the next person's turn and like before anything has really happened, they're like, oh, wait, no, I know what I'm going to do. You could go back to them, just make sure they don't make a habit of it. We're running Curse of Strahd. One player is playing Irina and she's having fun. The DM just gave her free reign to run the character she wants, even though she's a focal plot point. Interesting. That's interesting to me. Because I'm not sure that, I guess that works. And you're saying she's playing Irina alongside her character, or she's just playing Irina and that's the character she's playing as? Because those are two very different things. So yeah, some other things is like, if the tactical thinking of the thinker is taking so long to come up with what they want to do, and they're having difficulty keeping their turns short and sweet, like I said, if they're actively discussing their thought process, that can sometimes help. So one of the things I do, because I'm guilty of this sometimes, where I don't really know what I want to do, because I always want to try and do whatever's going to be the most tactically optimal situation, and sometimes it's hard to determine what that is. And so I'm sitting there like, okay, well, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, and then all of a sudden it's my turn. I'm like, oh crap, what do I do? And so what I will often fall back on is just kind of describing my thought process of what I'm examining, how I'm thinking, where I'm going with my ideas, to try and find the option that I want to go with. Oh, she's playing Irina. That's still, I still like, that's fine. I don't think like that's not weird to me, because I'm pretty sure the book actually has things for that. I haven't read Curse of Strahd fully in a very long time, but I think there's like options for that. I don't see a problem in a player being Irina, because you can work with them to come up with cool ideas and how to interact with that. This is funny, I already know where this goes, and it goes nowhere. Just a little corner thing. So yeah, that seems perfectly good to me. Like yeah. Now, if she was playing as a character and Irina, then I would be very like, because it's, you have to give the player knowledge that about the story that they wouldn't normally have, and that's where it gets weird for me. Not that I don't think people can't metagame, but it's just like, it's harder to enjoy the story if you know what's going to happen with this character because you're playing as them. I don't know. I can think of ways around that. It's just a concept I've never really gravitated towards. So it's just something I'm really curious about. But yeah, that's the thinker. There are other ways you can try to mitigate them taking forever. Oh yeah, so like I was saying, I just describe them like, okay, so there are 3 guys and they're like this, and this is going on here, and this is going on here. So like, you just run through what your thought is, and you can still be dragging things out that way, but at least you're not just sitting there quietly like, just give me a second. Like, that's the problem, right? Is that there's no engagement there. So if you're kind of walking the party through your thought process, you're also inviting them to help you decide what to do next, and allow them to give input on what they think could be a cool idea. or at least you should be. Hopefully, you're accepting of that, of them kind of chiming in, like, well, maybe I like that idea. Maybe try that, or well, you know, you could try this, and you got this distance here, and you can ask the DM questions like, you know, is this made of this, or do I think that this might have something to do with, like, you know, you work with them, you work with the players, you work with the DM, and you flesh out what's going on in your head, and then you just kind of have like a certain amount of time where you just have to make a decision. You try to kind of gauge, like, all right, I've been mulling this about for like maybe 5 minutes, I need to get on with it, I'm just going to do a thing, and you just have to be able to accept the fact that you're not always going to be able to make the optimal solution, because you do have to have some level of timed decision making, which is part of the fun. Honestly, it's part of the pressure. Like, if you have all the time in the world to come up with the best solution, you're always, it's like chess, right? If you're playing chess and you have an entirety of 24 hours per move, you are going to probably play very optimally. Whereas if you only have 24 seconds, you're probably going to make mistakes. But that's the point. No one's going to let you sit there for 24 hours while you come up with the best possible solution, or at least, you know, unless you're playing like one of those like roommate games on the hallway or something. Like, generally speaking, if you're playing across from somebody at a table, they're not going to just let you sit there and, oh god, and like wait for you to come up with the optimal solution to beat them. They're going to say, like, come on, man, get on with your turn. That's the same with anything, any game that involves turns. So you have to acquiesce at some point, and coming up with kind of what everybody is willing to put up with is not a bad idea. I usually say like 5 minutes. If you take longer than 5 minutes to even like start your turn, like to get to where people know what you're doing, then we have a problem. And so that's kind of where I feel like the line is you're allowed like 5 minutes to think about what you want to do, and then you have to start doing your turn. You don't have to end your turn within 5 minutes, but if nothing has happened on your turn within 5 minutes, you got to do something, right? Like, and sometimes I'll just feel it out. Like, I won't count 5 minutes. I'll just sort of feel it out, like, okay, it's been a while, I would like to move on. You know, I'm going to need you to do something. And I've had to do that a few times to a couple players, and it's never personal. It's never caused a problem. It's just like, yeah, okay, I guess I need to move on. More than once, the ogre slug attempted to hit me with some sort of corrosive spittle. I guess those were ogre slugs. Ew. Okay. Maybe. Full mallet. Not everyone can be Batman. So then, lastly, we have the Watcher. The Watcher is probably the type of player that tends to be the biggest hot point of discussion. At least in my observations, this is the type of player that most DMs are asking about, like, who are new to DMing. Like, they're not sure what to do with these players. So hopefully this is helpful to somebody. But the Watcher is a casual player, comes to the game because they want to be included. They want to be part of the socialization of it. You know, they're not necessarily super invested in the story, super invested in role playing, super invested in combat. Like, they don't have any real particular draw other than the fact they just want to hang out with their friends and have a good time. And even then, they might not. So this is dust that gets rid of a curse. So even then, they might not necessarily be like all about like getting involved with what's with the game and being with friends. Like, they're called the Watcher. They might just want to sit and mostly be a passive observer of what's happening. So a lot of DMs don't know what to do with Watchers because they feel like they're not having fun. So it's really important to know that this is a type of player, that there are people out there who just want to passively observe the game, be involved in it, but don't necessarily have any real desire to seriously engage with it. You know, these are the types of people who are happy to watch someone else play a video game rather than play it themselves. Nothing wrong with that. It's just what they like to do. And a lot of DMs ask about these types of players because, again, like I said, they feel like they're not having fun. They feel like these players are just not getting engaged. They're not getting drawn in. And the reality is they don't want to be. They have no real interest in doing that. And so my go-to is always just ask them, are you having fun? Are you enjoying coming? And then they're like, yeah. Now, some DMs don't like watchers because they want their players to be engaged. They want their players to take part and to be very interactive with stuff, to role play, to really bring their characters to life, to think about what's going on in the stories and the encounters. Like they don't want people to be watchers. And as a DM, I will say I definitely understand that feeling, because it is a little, not like annoying, like it's not annoying, it's just like it's a little underwhelming when you do like this cool encounter and they just kind of are like, oh neat, and they just get on with whatever they're doing, or like they're just kind of like, they laugh at all the jokes but they don't like add to them, like they're passive, right? And so when you're trying to do a social game and you're, as a DM, you're so worried about player engagement, you're always focusing on player engagement, you're always over analyzing everyone's responses to everything to make sure everyone's having a good time and that you're running a good game. And there's this one player there who's just sitting there and they're not doing anything, they're not getting involved, they're not present, they're not making themselves known. And so you worry, like, oh my god, what am I doing wrong? Like I don't know what they want. And you talk to them and they says, no, I'm having a good time, I'm really enjoying it, this is great, no, you're doing fine. And you're like, but you're not engaged, you're not. They never will be. That's the type of player they are, and that's fine, and you don't need to worry about it. They're just here to be part of the group. They don't want to be left out. All their friends are playing this cool game and hanging out and making all these stories and inside jokes, and they're not a part of it, and they want to be a part of it. And that's a very human thing, right? Like no one likes feeling left out. If you have 6 friends and all 6 of them are playing in your campaign, and 5 of them are playing in your campaign, that 6th person is going to feel left out. Now, if they're like a weird toxic player and that's the reason they're not playing, well, that's what you get. But if they're just passive, there's no reason to not include them. And I've sometimes suggested, like, they don't need to be a player. If they just want to be in the room just to know what's going on, you can set them up as like the chronicler or the journal or whatever, the note taker. And so they're just keeping track of what's happening and keeping note of it. And then they don't actually, then the fact that they're passive doesn't matter because they're just off on the sidelines enjoying it anyway. I actually know someone who has that in their D&D group where they have one player who's not, it doesn't play a character. They just take notes and everything, and they just are there for the ride. Like they just like to observe and be a part of it. And that's not that weird considering the fact that like my entire career is effectively currently based off of that as a concept of people wanting to observe the games that I'm running and that I'm playing in. Like, you know what I mean? Like even right now, there's some semblance of that happening. So it's not a weird thing for that to be the case. I think like Hutton said, like the Twitch viewer, like this is just, it's a normal thing. Like when I was a kid, I used to watch my dad play video games, and that's how we hung out. I didn't play games with him. I just would sit next to him and watch him play single player RPGs like Baldur's Gate, right? Like that's how we bonded. And that's what I liked. In fact, when I went over to friends' houses, I would often just sit down and watch them play games. Because I was very much, I wanted to be there with them, but I didn't want to have to make the decision of what we were doing, what was happening. And, I didn't want to be responsible for what was, so I was just like, yeah, you just want to play a game, I'll just watch you play the game, that's fine. And I will live vicariously with you playing through this game, and we will talk about the game, we'll comment on it together. But we don't need to play it together. And I had a perfectly good time with that. And my friends honestly were like, cool, I'll just play my game and we'll talk about it. And I've done that. I've played a game and my friend has watched me. Like, this is a thing that I used to do. I don't think it's a weird thing. I think it's a perfectly normal way for someone to enjoy whatever their hobby is. So we shouldn't try to like fix it, I guess. Like I would say the Watcher is another stigmatized player type, but not in the same way that like Power Gamer or Slayer or Instigator are. Like it's weirdly like in this other direction where it's more like they think it's some problem that needs to be fixed, and it really isn't. There's so many enemies on this floor. Oh god. Very happy my HP has gone up pretty significantly. Hammer gone. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Which is very far away. But some nice things about the Watcher is that they can be a very good neutral party to solve disputes. So because they're not like heavily involved in what's happening, and they're just sort of they're just a passive observer, they can be super useful for finding solutions to like inter-party arguments, and also to any like, what do we think is a cooler idea, this or this, because they are able to remove themselves from the game a lot easier than the players and the GM can. So that's one really nice thing they're good at doing. You also have the concept of them like, we know how hard it is to find a party and get a party together. You usually don't want to run for 1 or 2 people. You often are going to want at least 4 people in your party, 3 at absolute minimum. You know, 2 regularly is kind of not. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you whether or not you can or can't have fun with only 2 people, but oftentimes you want to have at least 4-ish people in your party, and the Watcher is someone who will happily join your party and increase the player count of your game to get you to the point where you don't have to worry about people being absent. And that's great. They just aren't going to be super ridiculously engaged. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Oh, there we go. Hidden door. Oh yeah. To a big fat nothing. Sick. Love that. If you do want to try and keep this person engaged, and usually you don't have to do much. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with them. You can just let them do their thing. But if you do want to try and engage these types of players and let them really slot into their role at your gaming table, don't force them. Because if you keep forcing them to try to do things, you keep throwing scenes at them that they don't want to engage with, you keep like soloing them out with scenarios, and they just want to have nothing to do, you're just going to alienate them. You're going to make them feel uncomfortable at the table, and they're not going to want to keep coming back because they no longer are. They're not getting comfort. It's too much for them. They're overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. So you don't want to force them. Accept that they are happy playing the way that they are playing. But sometimes the Watchers are sort of a cocoon form of another type of player because they're shy, or they're still learning, and they're not sure they want to put themselves out there just yet, that they don't want that, they're worried that they're going to be too overbearing. Like, people can be passive because they don't want to seem like they're embarrassed, or like there's a myriad of reasons why they could be passive. But it might not be that they enjoy playing the game this way. It could just legitimately be that they need to warm up still. And in that case, you still don't want to force them or push them. You still need to acknowledge, oh my god, 30 hours. You still need to acknowledge that this is how they're current, like, especially if you've asked them and they said, yeah, no, I'm having a good time, this is great. Accept that. But then, which is because they hit rest until healed, that's probably why. But then, if that's the case, you can start to prompt them a little bit. Give them small things they can do. Like, and it can be as simple as just occasionally turning them and saying, what do you think? Or what would you like to do? If everybody's doing a scene in camp, you can turn to them and say, well, what is your character doing? And if they just say, oh, I'm just going to sit by the fire and listen to the stories that the bard is telling, that's it. Don't push them any further than that. They have now been involved in the scene. If you feel like, you could go a little further, like that tends to be what they do all the time now. You could maybe say like, oh, do you have a specific, is there a specific way that you like to sit and enjoy this? Or, what are you eating what are you eating by the fire? Like just little questions that don't have any real bearing on what's happening. Things that they can't get wrong. Things that are just their own like subjective character-based stuff. Because that will give them a nice, safe way for them to explore more role play, more characterization, and playing the game more without it being like a huge decision that is going to alter the way the game goes. It's just little character things. And that's a really good way to help warm them up into getting into a much bigger position within the party. But keep in mind that, again, they may be happy where they are, so don't push it too hard. If you can, you might have to kind of observe them a little bit. And again, it's good to talk to them, communicate, not constantly, but just every now and again, just be like, hey, I really enjoyed that description you gave me in camp. That was cool. And then they can say like, oh yeah, I didn't really, I wasn't super interested in doing it, but everybody seemed like they wanted to do it. And you'd be like, oh, okay, you didn't want to do that. So the next time, don't push for it. Right. So these are just things to keep an eye on. Some of the downsides that you can have with the Watcher, and I've definitely had these problems. If they are being distracting because they're watching TV, they're playing a video game, they're on their phone looking at memes, and they keep trying to show the memes to people in the middle of sequences. They're watching TikToks and they don't have like earbuds in, or they are and they have the earbuds in, but like they're not paying attention when something's happening, so they don't know what's going on. Incredibly distracting. I would argue this isn't a Watcher anymore, because now they're just here because they don't want to be left out, but they also don't care about the game. They just want to be in the room with everybody. And then when everyone laughs, you're gonna say, wait, what happened? And then get told what happened, laugh, and then move, and then get back to what they were doing. I don't think anybody really enjoys that. So like, if that's the kind of Watcher you have, they probably, I think it's okay to have a frank discussion with them and say, look, we're here to play the game. If you want to play the game, you're welcome to play with us. And, you'll need to focus and not be on your phone, or we need you to focus on the game and not play other things and not do other stuff. If you don't want to play the game, then I'm sorry, but like, we're here to play the game. So, I'm going to say like, there's no reason for you to be coming to this thing to play this game. The reason we're all here is to play this game. If you're not going to play the game, there's no reason for you to be here if you're going to be disruptive. If they still want to come, but they're just going to sit there and pay attention or just whatever. And then if they're constantly bored, and then like, again, sometimes the solution is the table's not a right fit for them. And you can ask them, hey, what are some things I can do to get you more engaged? If you're going on your phone and you feel like this isn't an exciting enough story for you, like what can I do to help you with that? And the answer might be like, oh, I just want I only care about combat. And it's like, okay, well now they're not a Watcher, they're a Slayer. Now you could approach it from a different standpoint, right? But if they say something like, oh no, I'm fine, when they're figuring out what they want to do for combat or for their turn, I don't care. Like, I just want to wait and see what happens. So I just want to do something until it happens. And you can say, okay, that's fine. If you're going to sit on your phone, just like, don't interrupt other people. Don't show the memes. Post them in like a Discord server that everyone here is a member of, so they can see them later or during a break or something. And maybe something you can do is introduce like a mid-game break so that the Watcher has a chance to kind of unload everything they've been building up. It's a weird situation. Watchers are kind of this like outlier of player types where there's a certain level of, this is not great. I think I'm just gonna load that guy really messed me up. Watchers are this weird outlier that can change the dynamic of the game in a really weird way. If they are relatively involved though, and they're not like that level of distracted, like they are actually playing the game, they're involved, they're doing stuff, they're just passive, they might like to get up from the table often, like say go get a drink, go get a snack, or go lay on a couch for a bit and then come back later. You don't want to then, in a crucial moment, have them not be at the table, because what you don't want to have to do with the watcher is when they come back and say, oh, what did I miss, and then have to re-explain everything. Like, they should be at the table, that you don't have to keep re-explaining what's going on, or like catch them up. Like that's just going to drag time away from the session, and it's going to potentially, like, DMs don't like repeating themselves, right? And most people don't like repeating themselves in general. So don't let them leave the table if you know that something potentially, like, obviously don't be one of those like, you can't leave the table the whole time. Like, you let them leave the table, but if they have a habit of getting up and just like dipping, just let, like, again, talk to them, say like, look, you can't keep leaving the table, because you're never here for when something fun happens. You hear like a big exclamation, you come running back, and I have to redo the scene for you. Like, we need you to be here. We need you to be involved in the game if you're going to play with us. And I think it really all just boils down to that. It's like, we just need you to be involved. I've run a game for 2 people. I was always worried the module would steamroll them. I mean, you can, there are, like, the Essentials kit introduced the sidekick options. They're also in Tasha's. Like, you can always use those. Give them a secondary sort of squire character they can play as, that can help balance things out a little bit for a lower number of players. I played a 4-year campaign, and I was a solo player with a DM. Had a yeah, it can work. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just like, a lot of the reason why you have a passive player, like a watcher, is because you're filling up your player count. That's just, it is an advantage to having them around, as weird as it is. Had a Slayer in our group, and that's fine. The problem is he was in a game with a bunch of actors who enjoy out-of-combat scenes too. I mean, I don't know if that's a problem. I think that's just something to be aware of, right? Is to know that you need to balance it out a little bit. As long as the actors weren't like, we hate combat, then I think you're okay in that situation. Because a good D&D game is going to have a balance of different types of gameplay. And if you can work in a fight every session, even if it's just a tiny fight, I think you're fine in that situation. And again, involving the Slayer's backstory, even though they're not as interested in the game as they would otherwise be, they probably still care about their character to some degree. So you can try to involve their backstory a little bit, try to get what's going on with their character. Or heck, pull a power gamer move and make the quest reward a cool, awesome sword that helps them kill things, but they can't get to it through combat. So now they're invested at least in what's going on, and they have somewhat of an interest because the end goal is that they get better at killing things. A friend of mine enjoyed the minutiae of role-playing, like having a fully evening of role-playing around a campfire, talking with other PCs and NPCs. Not surprisingly, we called it Campfire the RPG. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, LARP is a thing, right? Like, there are entire communities out there who are just dedicated to role-playing, and that's their thing. So it's not that surprising that there would be people like the actor player types who are just like, I don't want to do combat. I barely want to roll dice. I just want to be this character in this world. But to which I usually would respond then, like, do you need to play D&D then? Can we just role play? Like, do we need dice? Do we need character sheets? Can we not just like sit around a campfire and in costume or even not, and just pretend to be those characters? Like, that's a thing you can do. Why not? It wasn't your thing. Yeah, well, and that's exactly it, right? All this is to say, like, because we're pretty much wrapping towards the end here. All of this is to just say that there are many types of players. There are many ways to play the game, and it is important for both you as a GM and for you as a player, for the other players at your table, and for your GM, that everyone can come to an agreement about what kind of game they're going to play that best melds with their style of game. Sometimes there is no harmony. Other times that harmony comes at the cost of compromise. Right? I know you only like combat. This guy only likes role-playing. But we can't just do one or the other. So let's try to find a way. Oh, there he is. I'm going to get the heck out of here. I want to rest before I fight him. Maybe. All right, we'll heal at least. And you just come to an agreement that can at least not fully please everybody. Because, again, I mean, it's that age-old saying, you can't please everybody. And it's true. It's very difficult for you, unless you somehow miraculously end up with a party of players who are all the same player type. Very rare. I don't see that happening. You are going to have to eventually just compromise on something. And most people are reasonable, and they're willing to accept the fact that they might need to compromise. It's just a matter of figuring out where the compromise is, how far one versus the other. And you might have to tweak it. You might have to try multiple sessions of experimenting before you find that right sweet spot that suits everybody as best as you can. But it's important that you do try to work towards that, and you do try to find it, because otherwise you don't want to have people feeling left out or like their needs are not getting met, because that's how you almost all breakdown like breakdowns of the social engagements of parties is because one or more of the players are not getting their player needs met. Either because of lack of communication or because the other players just don't want to do that and actively try to avoid it. I mean, realistically, all of this is a lack of communication. Like, most of it's lack of communication. But nearly every breakdown of like player relations has to do with the fact that their needs are not getting met, and what their desires and wants out of the game are not something that is being included. So regular check-ins, some understanding of the different types of players and how to engage with them and what to expect from them, so you can kind of like have more of an iron focus on what to tackle. And even, I mean, like, there are probably, I haven't checked, but there are probably surveys out there that you can send to players, and it'll tell you what kind of player they are, so you can just straight up like have a rough idea on how to approach things. But sometimes the table is just not right. If there can't be a compromise, and you've tried and you've tried and you've tried and it's just not working out, then the decision comes to, well, which style of player am I less interested in DMing for? Do I like combat encounters and I want to do more of them? I'm probably not gonna get rid of or tell the Slayer this table's not for him. I might tell the actor, like, hey, if you're not willing to do the way we want to, unfortunately, I just don't think this is gonna work out. Or if 3 of the players are actors and one of them is a Slayer, like what you had, Brad, unfortunately, it's probably going to be the Slayer, simply because the majority of your players are one style and they're not. But like I said, most people are willing to compromise to some degree, especially because, like, it's generally known it's very difficult to get a group together. And so, like, if the Slayer realizes, like, oh, if I don't ease up on my constant want for combat, I won't have a game anymore, they will try to mitigate themselves and work with them on it, right? Like, understand that it is not going to be necessarily an easy switch they can flip in their head. Try to find that the best way to mitigate it, even if they think, like, no, I will not be happy unless I'm fighting 3 times every session. And you're like, I just can't do that. You know, and they're like, no, that has to be it, or I'm not having fun. Then if that's the case, then you go to the actors and they say, nope, we don't want to do 3 combats around. That's ridiculous. You're at an impasse. No one's willing to compromise. You have to make a decision. And these are things that are important to figure out early on before the rot sets in, and just unravels your whole game. What type of player do you consider yourself? So, like, that's the weird thing, because I'm not sure. I'd like to say that I'm the thinker, but I also like to play characters who don't think. I like to make builds that are incredibly powerful, but also that are really thematic to a character concept. I like to explore the nuances of roleplay, but I also really like to just hit things and strategize with the combat. I've thought about it a fair bit, and I'm genuinely not sure. I think I'm a good mix of a bunch of them. But if I had to pick one amongst the Watcher, the Thinker, the Storyteller, the Slayer, the Power Gamer, the Instigator, the Explorer, or the Actor, I would say I'm probably a Storyteller with a little bit of Power Gamer and a little bit of Thinker. The reason I say that is because I have found that I'm way less interested in a game that I'm playing in if I can't latch onto the story. And I'm not a storyteller in the sense that, and I think this just comes with being like kind of the forever GM, right? I'm not a storyteller in the sense that I'm always going to be super invested in the story. It's like, no, I want a good, gripping story that is going to be really interesting and is going to get me excited for what's going to happen next. And I've been in games, long-term campaigns, where an hour can go by and I'm just like, nothing interesting to me has happened. My character's not involved. What my character's goals are is not involved. And you know, if it was combat, I'd be okay because like I enjoy a good combat. But like if 3 sessions have gone by and there's been no combat, I am going to be, if I'm playing a character who I built around like a cool combat concept, I'm not going to be that interested in it. But I like to tell a story with the power gaming. So like if I come up with a cool concept for a character, it's because I have a specific kind of scene or action piece that I want to explore that works with that character build. So I think storyteller is the closest to what I am. But I think it honestly just depends on my mood and whether or not I'm on stage, whether or not I'm being recorded, whether or not I'm on stream, whether or not I'm just sitting at home, what kind of character I wanted to play. It can vary, but I think storyteller, I think. Scheduling is the worst villain in D&D. It truly is. All right, here's what we're going to do. We've covered all the player types. There's still a fair bit more of this dungeon floor, I think. But because I have all these keys and stuff, I guess for over here. The boss is right there. I think I'm going to save the rest of this dungeon for next time because I'm not sure. I was kind of thinking I might try to defeat this boss, though. So I'm going to give it the old college try. And then we're going to sign off for the night because it's been about 2 hours. And that's about where I'm wanting to, I think, keep the length of this stream. Did Horde of the Dragon Queen. We had a solid couple months without combat. So boring. Horde of the Dragon Queen. This isn't really a hot take, but like Horde of the Dragon Queen is honestly not that interesting of a campaign. It is very railroady. It's hard to keep players interested unless they've like very much integrally tied themselves into the plot, which isn't easy for them to do. This dude is rough. Oh my god. Because I did run that adventure and it was very difficult. My players had a really hard time getting into it. Did I get him? Ooh, I did. So I don't know if that's similar to your experience. Just cold. He didn't even have that good loot on him. But yeah, so we got him. Awesome. But yeah, I did find that was my experience. It didn't. Horde of the Dragon Queen is what it did. Horde of the Dragon Queen is the very first printed module for 5th edition. It was in development while they were still ironing out the rules for 5th edition. So there's a lot of weird inconsistencies with like certain stat blocks being way too overpowered for the opposed level of the party. And like it starts really strange because it starts with you guys being told to go to a town and then you see that town on the horizon being attacked by a green dragon and that's where it's, or a blue dragon, and that's where it starts. So it's like every single player's like, well, we're not going there, there's a dragon. And it should just start you in the town. Like you should start in the town and everything's happening there so that you are already involved rather than like giving you the option to go to the, because if you don't, Horde of the Dragon Queen very much needs you to follow point A to B to C to D to E to F. It doesn't really give you a lot of room for going off the beaten path. And that's one of the criticisms that my group had for it. And the other was that the story just wasn't interesting to them. Like it's a very slow burn of a story, and they just weren't getting into it. So, okay. Oh, that was that. Hopefully, everybody had a good time. I've been wanting. I definitely wanted to finish covering the player types because I think that was interesting. I've had some ideas on the road trip in that module. Just drags. Yeah, it really does. I was able to do some fun things with it, but it's like a 30-day trip from I think it's Baldur's Gate to Waterdeep, and like there's a ton of random encounters and stuff, but not a lot. And there's like attack by trolls and stuff. Like I don't know, I jazzed it up quite a bit. Like that part of the campaign actually was quite a lengthy procedure that my players got a lot of stuff out of it. But yeah, it is a bit of a slog if you run it as is. That module needs a lot of TLC, and that's really the only way to make it interesting, I think. They did re-release it recently with like fixed stat blocks and stuff, but it doesn't fix the core root of the problem, which is that the story is just not very good, or at least not laid out in an interesting way for the players to follow it. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this. I've had some ideas for a couple of other topics we can do. I don't have anything off the top of my head right now, and like I said, probably gonna be like 2 weeks before I do this again anyway, because I will be in Atlanta next week. So maybe I'll do, I think what I would like to do is another Tome Keeper's Library to focus on another book. I don't know what book yet, so I'm gonna spend some time figuring out what book I want to talk about and kind of just prepare a little thing. Definitely not going to be another 3.5 something hour stream like I did with the 2024 PHB. That was ridiculous. So I'll find another book that we can talk about for like an hour or something, and then we'll come back to this maybe the week or two after, because then I got to go to Gamehole Con. Oh my god. But yeah, we'll keep moving. Like always, if you have any ideas on a topic for us to talk about, anything you have questions about, anything you would like to know in regards to DMing or being a player or anything along those lines for TTRPGs, join the Discord. Links and stuff are below. Feel free to comment on the video because I'll check those out as well. And like I said, as always, you can post stuff in here, and we'll take a look at it. But realistically, best way to do it is join the Discord, go to the Hacking the Dungeon section, and let me know what you're interested in hearing about. Because basically every topic that we have covered so far has been something suggested by one of you guys. So that's kind of what I like. I want to know what you guys want to know, and I want to talk about what you guys want me to talk about, because I can talk about anything. A little direction is always nice. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being a part of this and for being so supportive and keeping up the chat and the discussion. This is super fun for me. I look forward to this every week, and I don't ever really know what to say to sign these off other than thank you so much. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening and a very solid week. Stay tuned for more stuff that's cool that we're doing, and I'll see you all on the flip side.